Hello, hello. Today we're going to move on to Unit 5, Lesson 26, and we're going to get into our statistical questions. So we're getting into our statistics and probability unit. So basically on this lesson, we're going to focus on the types of questions that are going to be considered statistical. So let's think through it and learn what are statistical questions. So, when you want to find out more about something, one thing you can do is ask questions. Some questions have exact answers, such as, how many people are in your class right now? You can look around the room and count how many people there are. Other questions can have many answers, such as asking some sixth graders, what is your favorite kind of music? So, if you went around to your class, you would ask what's your favorite kind of music, you would get a lot of different answers. It wouldn't all be the same. Some might, but not all of them. When you want to find out what kind of music all sixth graders like most, there are likely too many people to ask. By asking 20 sixth graders, what is your favorite kind of music, you can get a good sense of the type of music all sixth graders like. If you ask another class of sixth graders the same question, your results would probably be similar, but not exactly the same. When you ask a question to make a prediction about a larger group, you are asking a statistical question. A statistical question does not have an exact answer. So, statistical questions do not have an exact answer. We expect to get a variety of answers. Okay? So, it says answers to statistical questions have variability. That means that it is a statistical variability. And that will be one of your vocab words that we want to kind of understand. But statistical variability means that their answers are going to vary. Non-statistical questions have exact answers, such as how many people are in the class. If you asked every different kid in the class, you're still going to get that exact same answer. So that would not be a statistical question. So let's think. What does it mean for a question to be statistical? Sasha wants to collect statistical information about the different sports sixth graders at her school like to watch. She writes 3 questions to ask 50 sixth graders and will use the results to make a prediction about all sixth graders. Which questions are statistical and which are not? So we're going to circle the ones that are statistical that we would expect to get different answers from. So if we look at the first one, when is the next home basketball game? So we basically have to think, what would people answer? If we're talking about a specific home basketball game, we're probably going to be getting the same answer because the next home game is going to be the next home game. So since there would be an exact answer for this, that would not be a statistical question. So we're just going to cross that one off. The next one, what is your favorite sport to watch? So let's think about this one. If you were to ask different students what's their favorite sport to watch, are you going to get the exact same answer? You might get a few, but not all of them. So this one would be a statistical question because we would have varying answers. The last one, what was the last sports game you watched at this school? This one would also be a statistical question because not everybody goes to all the same games. So some might say football, some might say basketball, some might say volleyball. It just depends on what the last game they watched is. So your answers would vary. So the first question, like we said, is not statistical because the date of the next home game is the same no matter who or how many people you ask. Okay, you can look at a schedule, it's going to be the same answer. The next 2 questions are statistical because you would expect some variability in the answers. Sasha could use those responses to think about the different sports that sixth graders like to watch. So let's think about, how do you write statistical questions? What statistical question could Sasha ask if she was interested in knowing what school sport sixth graders like to watch the most? Look at the questions she wrote. What is your favorite sport to watch? That one is too general. Someone's favorite sport to watch might not be a school sport. There may be too many varying answers. Maybe some of it is sports that are not even part of the school. So that one might be too many different possibilities. What was the last sports game you watched at this school? That one's a little too specific because depending on the time of year, if we're talking now, it might be track or baseball. But if you're talking during the winter, it might be basketball or wrestling. So depending on the time of year, it kind of limits what the last school sport they watched was. So to collect data on what sports sixth graders like to watch the most, Sasha could ask, which school sports are you most interested in watching? Circle one from the list below. So then she could list all the sports at her school, and then it would be a more specific statistical answer. So possible responses would be one of the listed sports. The varying answers would help her draw conclusions about which sports sixth graders at her school like to watch the most. Now you'll have a chance to think more about statistical questions and the data they help collect. So, number 1 says, let's reflect. Explain the difference between a question that is statistical and one that is not. So, a statistical question has varying answers. A non-statistical question will have exact answers. So now let's go through and explore it a little more, and we're going to determine whether each question is statistical or non-statistical and then explain why. So number 2 says, a political group asked voters waiting in line to vote, who are the 2 major candidates running for president this year? So if we think about that and they're asking who are the candidates running for president, we're going to have exact answers. So we would say that this is a non-statistical because the answers are exact. Number 3, the journalism club surveyed students in the library and asked about how much time do you spend reading each day? So if we think about reading each day, each student's probably going to read a different amount, which means that this is a statistical question. Because the answers will vary. Okay, the next one, number 4, to decide if a new movie should be shown this Friday, a movie theater invited 50 people to view the movie and answer the question, did you enjoy the movie? So, you're going to have 2 possibilities, but it is going to vary from each one. So this would be considered a statistical question. Because you're going to get some yes and some no. So answers will vary. Number 5, a 6th grader asked her guidance counselor how many clubs and sports are open to 6th graders at this school. So, if we think about this, and they want to know how many clubs or sports are open to 6th graders at this school, there's only going to be certain ones that are. So this question is a non-statistical because the answer will be exact. Number 6, we're going to write a statistical question. So it says write both a statistical and a non-statistical question. You could ask some classmates to make a prediction about teenagers and text messaging. So this one's really up to you guys. What kinds of questions could you ask that would be a statistical question about teenagers and text messaging? As long as the answer that they provide will vary, that you'll get different ones, it would be a statistical question. For it to be a non-statistical question, they would have to answer the same thing. So go ahead and write down your statistical and non-statistical question about teenagers and text messaging. Okay, so let's go into some more questions. Number 7 says, use an example from the previous page to explain what it means for a question to have statistical variability. So, looking back at the questions on the previous page, let's look at, just for the heck of it, number 4. Number 4 has people saying yes or no. Choose yes or no. But there is variability because there is not one exact answer. Okay, you will have some people that'll say yes and some people that'll say no because of their opinion on the movie. Number 8, look at problems 2 through 5. How could you change one of the non-statistical questions so that it is statistical? And then explain how. So if we go back and look, let's look at number 2 where it talks about who are the 2 major candidates running for president this year. Instead of saying, so we'll say change number 2. Instead of saying who are the candidates, we could ask who they vote for. So that way, instead of saying the 2 specific candidates and having it be a non-statistical question, if they tell us who they are voting for, that makes it statistical because the answers will vary from person to person. So number 9 says, look at the questions you wrote in problem 6. Explain why the answers do or don't have variability. So this one is going to be based on the questions that you have. Basically, you're just going to explain why your statistical question is a statistical question and why your non-statistical question is a non-statistical question. So let's try it another way. Look at these survey results and think about a possible statistical question. Mia surveyed her classmates to make a prediction about kids her age. So it has hours, 0, half an hour, 1, 1.5 hours, and 2, and then the number of students for each of those times. So it says, which could be a question Mia asked, and then explain why you choose that one. So take a moment, pause the video, and go ahead and answer this. Then in a couple minutes, when you're done, you can resume the video and kind of compare with what I have written. All right, so which one of these could be a question she asked? Well, we're dealing with hours and the number of students who do something during that hour. So if we're looking at that, she probably asked this middle one right here. Oh, sorry, wrong one. The bottom one right here. About how long do you spend watching TV every day? Because that would be measured in hours, and then you could have which students watch that much TV for each amount of time. So we can say it's that one because how long you watch can be measured in hours. And she can use it to make a prediction of how long kids watch TV.